The roar of rotor blades tore through the quiet morning. 2 military helicopters descended onto a small suburban street in Texas. Wind scattered dry leaves. Dust rolled across front porches. A man in uniform stepped out, tall, silver insignia gleaming on his chest. He raised his hand, a full, crisp salute directed at a young woman standing still on the porch. Her hair was pulled back. Her scrubs wrinkled a smear of dried blood on the sleeve. She didn't speak, didn't smile, just stood there as if unsure what was happening. Neighbors pulled back curtains. Children stopped playing. Someone raised a phone and started recording. An unknown nurse. Why was the United States military saluting her? Everything had started on a night that should have meant nothing. Emily Reed lived alone in a small second-floor apartment just outside Houston. She drove an old blue Corolla, the kind that made a soft wheeze every morning. Her place was quiet, faint ticking from the wall clock, a coffee cup with a chipped rim. A calico cat named Socks slept on the windowsill most days. She wasn't loud, didn't chase attention. But when someone needed help, Emily was the first to step forward. She worked nights at St. Mary's Trauma Center. Long hours, short breaks, patients who screamed, others who never got to. She stayed calm, not because she was fearless, but because people needed her to be. Nurses respected her skill, but whispered that she didn't follow the chain. She asked questions, pushed back. Once she stitched up a boy in the hallway when the ER was full. No one said it aloud, but some thought she went too far, and that Tuesday night, she would go farther. Tuesday night was quiet, too quiet. Emily sat in the break room sipping lukewarm coffee. She stared at the stain on her sleeve. Dried blood from an earlier shift. Then the intercom clicked on. Code red, Trauma Bay, ETA 4 minutes, unidentified male, multiple gunshot wounds. She tossed the cup, walked fast toward the ER. The hallway lights buzzed faintly. Monitors beeped in steady rhythm. A nurse pulled out crash carts. Another opened the surgical trays. They all moved, but no one spoke. 2 minutes later, headlights swept across the ambulance bay. But it wasn't an ambulance. It was a black SUV. Government plates. Doors flung open. 2 men stepped out in uniform, dragging a third between them. His shirt soaked red, his face pale gray. He's critical. 40 rounds. He lives. Or Washington wants answers. Emily's eyes locked on his chest. There was no time to wait. The trauma bay stood still. Everyone waited. No one moved. Emily looked at the man on the gurney. Blood poured from his side. His pulse barely flickered. The others kept glancing at the doors, still no surgeon. The head nurse whispered, "We can't touch him. No clearance." Emily stepped closer. She peeled back what was left of his vest. Wounds deep, scattered raw. Some bullets still visible, others buried inside. She grabbed gloves, pulled on a gown. "Prep for emergency surgery," she said, voice steady. "You're not authorized," someone said. "He'll be dead in 5 minutes," she answered. No one stopped her. No one helped either. A young tech handed her the suction tube, quietly, carefully. Emily looked down at her hands, then at the man's chest. This wasn't protocol, it wasn't safe, but letting him die felt worse. And so she began. The light above the table flickered once, then held steady. Emily leaned in. The first wound was near the shoulder. She cleaned it. Steady hands, focused breath. The bullet was deep, just under the muscle. She reached in with forceps, felt resistance, twisted gently, pulled. A sharp click of a metal on metal. One down. Blood filled the cavity again. She packed it, moved to the next. No words in the room, just suction, monitors, the rhythm of tools. The soldier's chest rose and fell uneven. Still fighting, still alive. Emily whispered to herself, "Keep going." 3 bullets, then 5, then 8. She didn't look at the clock. She didn't look around. Just hands, blood, breath. Every second counted. Every movement mattered. And the bullets kept coming. She didn't know how many were left, only that stopping wasn't an option. The beeping changed. Not faster, slower. Emily froze for half a second. The soldier's chest stopped rising. His pulse was gone. Code blue. Someone whispered, but no one moved. Emily didn't shout. She grabbed the paddles. Charging, clear. She shocked him once. Nothing. Again. This time his body jumped. Then a weak blip. Another. Then steady rhythm. She exhaled, quiet but shaking. He was back, not stable, but back. She returned to the wounds, a deep one near his ribs. The metal touched bone. She kept going, 11 bullets out, then 13, then 16. Hands cramped, eyes burned. But she didn't stop. She didn't ask how long it had been. She didn't ask if she was allowed. She only asked herself one thing. Can I keep him alive just 1 minute longer? The tray beside her was half full. Silver glints, each one pulled from torn flesh. Emily's gloves were soaked. Her arms shook, but her hands stayed steady. A nurse stepped closer, didn't speak, just handed her the next tool. They were following her lead now, not because she had rank, but because she had nerve. 19 bullets, then 20. The man's vitals improved just slightly. Enough to hope, but not enough to rest. She leaned in again, another wound deeper than the last. Lower abdomen, risky. She paused, wiped sweat from her brow with her sleeve. The monitor beeped slow but steady. Still with her. She whispered, "Hang on." Then she cut deeper. Somewhere in the hallway footsteps approached, but she didn't look up, not yet. She had removed 35 bullets, but the last 5 were the most dangerous, all buried in the abdomen, near the liver, the spleen, the lower aorta. One wrong move and he would bleed out in seconds. Emily paused. Her gloves dripped, her back ached, but her hands didn't shake. She reached in, slow, careful, focused. The first bullet came out clean. The second lodged deep. She worked around a vein. Beep, beep. The monitor held steady. The fourth took longer. It tore muscle when she pulled. One left. She leaned closer, holding her breath, pressed gently through tissue. There it was, sharp, hot, silent. She pulled. 40 bullets, all out. The tray was full. The bleeding slowed, and the man still breathed. Emily stepped back, her face pale, her scrubs soaked. She had done it. But even as she stood there, she knew this was far from over. Emily peeled off her gloves one finger at a time. They dropped into the waste bin without a sound. She sat alone in the locker room, hands shaking, uniform stained, face numb. No one said thank you. No one met her eyes. She stared at the wall, listened to the hum of the vending machine, felt her heartbeat in her wrists. She had done what no one else would, and now? She waited. The next morning she walked into the hospital again. Same hallway, same lights, same smell. But something felt wrong. A nurse turned away. Another looked down. Conversation stopped when she passed. Then the PA crackled. "Nurse Emily Reed, please report to administration." The voice was flat, cold. She closed her eyes. It had begun. Emily walked down the long hallway. Each step felt heavier than the last. She passed posters on the wall, excellence in care, patient first. They felt hollow now. Outside the admin office, 2 security guards stood waiting. She paused, took a breath, pushed open the door. Inside, a woman from HR she barely knew. The chief of staff, Dr. Lewis, arms folded, face unreadable. "Emily," he said, "please sit." She did. Her hands rested in her lap. "We've reviewed last night's events," HR began. "Multiple violations of hospital policy, no authorization, no attending physician, no legal clearance." Emily blinked. "I saved his life," she said. Dr. Lewis looked down. "We know, but rules exist for a reason." The HR rep slid a white envelope toward her. "Effective immediately, your employment is terminated." Emily stood up slowly. She unclipped her badge, set it on the table without a word. The room stayed quiet. One of the guards opened the door, the other followed behind her. Not forceful, just routine. She walked down the same hallway she once rushed through to save lives. Now every step echoed. No one spoke. Doctors glanced her way. Some looked confused. Others looked away. A nurse she once trained stood frozen near the elevator. She didn't say anything, just pressed her lips together and turned. At the back exit, the guard swiped his key. The door clicked. Emily stepped into the morning sun. It was too bright, too quiet. She stood beside her car, still wearing the same blood-stained scrubs, still hearing the monitors in her head. She had saved a life, and they had shown her the door. The apartment felt colder than before. Emily closed the door gently behind her, as if sound itself was too much. Socks, her old cat, lifted his head, then laid it back down. Even he could feel something had changed. She dropped her bag on the floor, let her keys fall into the bowl by the door. The sound echoed longer than it should have. She didn't change, didn't shower, just sat at the kitchen table. Her hospital badge lay there, still smiling in the photo, still showing the name she no longer belonged to. She stared at it, not angry, not crying, just hollow. Her phone stayed dark. No calls, no texts, not even from the nurses she once worked beside. The silence wasn't an accident. It was a choice. Emily sat on the bathroom floor, back against the tub, arms wrapped around her knees. She stared at the tiles, not thinking, just breathing, but doubt crept in. Soft at first, then heavier. What if they were right? What if I crossed a line? She replayed every second. The blood, the silence, the final bullet. She hadn't asked permission, hadn't waited for backup. She just acted. That was the part they couldn't accept. The system wanted signatures. She brought instincts. The hospital wanted caution. She brought heart. Now, she had nothing. No job, no team, no voice. Her stomach tightened. But she wasn't hungry. Not for food, not for comfort. Only one thought stayed with her. Did I do the right thing? And in the silence, she still didn't have an answer. Days passed. Quiet, slow, still. Emily barely left the apartment. She kept the blinds closed, let the coffee go cold. Each morning she checked her phone. Still nothing. No calls, no emails, not even from the man she saved. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe they kept it quiet. She watched the world move outside. Neighbors walked dogs. Kids rode bikes. Packages arrived. No one knew what she had done, or what it had cost. The badge still lay on the table. Next to the unopened envelope from HR, a reminder of what was lost, and what might never come back. At night, she couldn't sleep, not because of regret, but because of the silence. Silence louder than any siren, heavier than any judgment. And still, no one knocked. That morning started like the others. Still, quiet, slow. Emily sat on the porch, wrapped in a sweatshirt, hands around a mug of cold coffee. The sky was pale, the air felt heavy. Then, a sound. Low, distant. Not traffic, not wind. A deep, steady thump, growing louder. She looked up. The coffee cup stopped at her lips. Helicopter blades. Not news choppers, not medical flights. Military. One. Then another. Black, heavy, coming fast. Neighbors stepped outside. Phones lifted, eyes followed the sky. The sound shook the windows, set off a car alarm down the block. Emily stood slowly. Her pulse matched the rhythm overhead. The helicopters weren't passing by. They were coming down, right toward her building. The first helicopter hovered low. Dust swirled. Tree branches bent. The ground vibrated under her feet. Then the second one circled once, held position. Neighbors filmed from their porches. Some covered their ears. Some just stared. Emily stood still, arms by her side, Wind pulling at her hoodie, hair whipping across her face. Doors opened mid-air. 4 figures stepped out. Boots hit the pavement. Dark uniforms. Straight posture. In the center, a tall man. Silver eagles on his collar. Eyes locked on Emily. He walked toward her. Slow. Certain. No hesitation. She didn't move. Didn't speak. Not yet. The noise faded just enough to hear his voice. Emily Reed. She nodded once. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a white envelope. Then, with the whole street watching, he took a step back and saluted. Emily reached out with both hands, took the envelope gently. It was thick, heavy, official. The commander held her gaze. "You saved one of ours," he said. "We don't forget that." She didn't answer. Her throat was tight. She looked down at the seal. United States Navy. She opened it carefully. Inside, a formal letter, a silver medal, and a check. Her fingers trembled. She read the words slowly. Each line felt like a weight lifting. You acted with courage. You gave him a future. You are not alone. A small crowd had gathered now. Phones still recording. No one said a word. The commander added softer this time, "We came to find you. Because people like you don't belong in the shadows." Emily blinked back tears, and for the first time in days, she felt seen. Emily stood still on her porch, letter in one hand, medal in the other. The check untouched. The wind from the helicopters began to fade, leaves settled, dust dropped. The silence after felt deeper than the roar before. Then a slow clap. One neighbor, then another, then more. The sound built, not loud, but steady. Hands clapped from porches, from balconies, from across the street. Some nodded, some wiped their eyes. No speeches, no cameras in her face. Just quiet recognition. Emily didn't raise the medal. She didn't smile. She just stood there, letting it happen, letting it reach her. Because this wasn't about honor. It wasn't about money. It was about being believed. And for the first time since that night, she was. That evening, Emily sat on her couch. The medal lay on the table, still shining in the soft light. Still hard to believe. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something told her to. Miss Reed. A calm voice. Professional. "This is Dr. Karen Bell. I'm with Rockridge Medical." Emily didn't speak. "We saw the story." The voice continued. "We saw your heart, your judgment, your courage." A pause. "Then, we'd like to offer you a position, Head of Emergency Ethics and Training. Not as a reward, but because our staff needs someone like you." Emily looked out the window. The street was quiet again, but something in her had shifted. She didn't say yes, not yet, but for the first time in weeks, she considered tomorrow. 2 days later, Emily stood backstage. Small town auditorium, folded hands, quiet breath. A Navy officer stepped up to the microphone. "Today, we honor a civilian who acted with courage not for glory, but because someone's life depended on it." He turned toward her. "Emily Reed, please join us." She stepped onto the stage. No music, no spotlight, just rows of people. Doctors, nurses, veterans, neighbors. A silver medal was placed around her neck. It felt warm, not heavy, just real. Then they handed her the mic. She held it with both hands, looked at the crowd, then down at the floor. "I didn't do this for attention," she said softly. "I just didn't want him to die." A pause. "If I had to do it again," she looked up, "I would." For a second, the room was silent. Then applause. Long, full, not polite, real. Some stood, some wiped their eyes. Reporters lowered their cameras. Doctors nodded quietly. Nurses clapped the hardest. Emily stepped back from the mic. Didn't wave, didn't bow. She just breathed. She had said what mattered, and they had heard her. By the time she left the stage, her phone buzzed again. Texts, emails, requests. One came from a nurse in New York. You reminded us why we chose this job. Another from a medic in Nevada. Thank you for doing what we all wish we could." Emily didn't answer right away. She just sat outside on a bench medal still around her neck. For the first time, the world wasn't loud with judgment. It was quiet with respect. That night, her story made the evening news. Not as a scandal, but as a headline, "Fired Nurse Saves Soldier's Life Honored by U.S. Navy." The video of her speech spread fast, shared by nurses, posted by veterans, quoted by leaders. Hashtags appeared. Chat, Nurse Hero, number 40, bullets. # Emily Reed. Talk shows reached out. Podcasts asked for interviews. A senator retweeted her clip with 4 words. This is real courage. But Emily didn't chase any of it. She didn't want to be famous. She just wanted people to remember that sometimes doing the right thing doesn't fit the rules. And sometimes it's exactly what the world needs. That week, she got 3 job offers, all with better titles, all with higher pay, but only one made her stop and think, and it came from a small town in Colorado. Emily stepped off the plane in Colorado. Crisp air, quiet skies, snow on the mountains in the distance. She carried 2 bags, nothing fancy, just what she needed to start over. A driver from the hospital met her at the gate, held a simple sign, "Emily Reed, Rockridge Medical." The drive was short, past pine trees, past frozen lakes. Then she saw it, a small hospital. Clean, no glass towers, no noise, just care, real quiet care. Inside, they had already printed her name on the door, "Emily Reed, RN Director, Emergency Ethics and Training." She stood there for a moment, fingers touching the glass, breathing in the stillness. No applause, no cameras, just a new hallway, and a place where people didn't fear doing the right thing. This time, she had walked through the right door. Emily didn't stay in her office. She walked the halls, met the nurses, listened more than she spoke. No one asked about the medal. No one mentioned the news. They just saw her, as one of them. In the ER, she helped steady a patient's IV, checked charts, sat with a scared teenager until his mother arrived. One nurse whispered, "We're glad you're here." Later, a child with a fever reached for her hand. "You're warm," the little girl said. Emily smiled. For the first time in a long time, it felt natural. She stayed until the end of the shift. Not because she had to, but because it felt right. As the sun set outside, she stood at the window, coat draped over her shoulders. This wasn't a second chance. It was the right one. Weeks later, a name appeared on the visitor list. No title, just M. Cole. He walked with a slight limp, scars along his arms, but his eyes were clear. Emily met him in a quiet room off the main hallway. He stood in front of her for a moment, then said, "They told me your name. I asked to find you." She nodded. He smiled just a little. "They said you saved my life." Emily looked down. "I just did what needed to be done." He shook his head. "No. You chose to act." Everyone else froze. They didn't hug. They didn't cry. They just sat for a while, 2 people connected by a moment few would ever understand. Before leaving, he looked back. "You didn't just save me," he said. "You reminded me why I wanted to come home." Later that same afternoon, a knock came at her office door. A young woman stood there, barely 20. Fresh badge, nervous eyes. "Hi. I just started last week." She held a clipboard to her chest, voice soft, almost shaking. "I watched the video," she said. "The one from your speech, and the story." Emily waited. "You're the reason I applied to nursing school. I didn't think people like you were real." Emily stepped forward, placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. "You don't have to be like me," she said. "You just have to stay honest with yourself." The girl nodded, eyes glassy, like someone holding on to something fragile but real. Emily added one more thing. "Promise me this. Don't wait for permission to do the right thing." That evening, as Emily stepped outside, the air was cool. Clear sky. quiet wind. She walked past the flagpole near the parking lot. The flag moved gently, steady, and calm. Then she heard it, the distant hum of rotors. Not loud this time, not urgent, just present. 2 helicopters passed overhead. Same model, same color. They moved slowly side by side, then lifted higher, rising into the sky. She didn't wave, didn't chase the moment, just looked up and stood still. Behind her, someone whispered, they knew where to find her, and now they know where she stands. There was no stage, no medal this time, just sky and motion and memory. Emily let her eyes close for a second. Let the wind brush her face. Some salutes don't need words, just truth and time. Back in her apartment, Emily sat by the window, a cup of tea in her hands. The medal rested beside an old photo of her in nursing school. No applause, no headlines now. Just the hum of the heater and the sound of a calm evening. She watched the streetlights blink on, one by one. Her name had stopped trending. The messages slowed. The world moved on. But inside her something stayed. Still, solid. She hadn't set out to prove anything. She wasn't chasing praise. She just chose to act when it mattered most. And now she carried that truth quietly. Not to wear it, but to live it. She took a slow breath, looked out across the city. Sometimes the loudest kind of victory is peace. At hospitals across the country, her name still came up. Not as gossip, but as a quiet reminder. New nurses learned her story during training. Doctors spoke of her in meetings. Not to question what she did, but to ask themselves what they would have done. Some called it courage. Others called it instinct. To Emily, it was simple. A life needed saving. She answered. Years from now, they might forget the headline, the medal, the helicopters. But someone will remember the choice, the moment she didn't wait. A young nurse, a patient on the edge, a heartbeat hanging by a thread. And maybe then someone else will act. Not because the policy says so, but because they know what's right. That's the legacy, not the story, but the spark it leaves behind. Not every act of courage ends in applause. Some end in silence, in tired hands, in a decision made alone, at the right moment. Emily Reed never planned to be anyone's hero. She didn't ask for medals, she didn't wait for headlines. She just chose to act, because someone had to, and because a life was worth it. Her story didn't change the rules, it changed people. The way nurses looked at their calling, the way strangers saw quiet strength. Years from now, someone else will be in that hallway. No permission, no time. And they'll remember her. Not for the spotlight, but for the choice. So, if you're watching this, and you've ever been told to wait, to stay quiet, to follow the line, remember this: doing what's right doesn't always follow policy, but it always leaves a mark. If this story moved you, share it with someone who still believes in kindness, and leave a comment, not for her, but for the next Emily.